Welcome back to The Hook on Woodward Sports Network. Tom Mazaway alongside Darren McCarty and our good friend Dennis Fithian sitting in the house today here. Don't forget, we are Detroit's all-digital network. You can get in touch with us anytime, all over on social media. But right now, let's go to there's so many stories to talk to Dan Lust about. We only have him for a little bit, so we got a rapid fire with our main man, the sports attorney to the stars. Dan Lust joins us here on The Hook. What up, Danny?
My pleasure. And Tom, I feel like it was just yesterday when I was speaking to you guys. We have some more breaking news. Always good.
I know. It's always good. And you know what? You've been all over it on Twitter. It's fun. You got 3 stories. We got the Guardians roller derby team. They're not backing down. We've got the Sharks' Evander Kane gambling allegations from his estranged wife that he's bet against himself. And let's start with more troubles from Deshaun Watson. A therapist comes out and tells her side of the story, and it does not sound good for him.
Yeah, this one is, I guess, relatively straightforward, right? These are the type of allegations, and you can look it up online. I believe her name is Nia Lewis. She went on a YouTube channel and just, as the kids say, guys, spilled the tea a little bit. It's, you know what I mean? It's one thing to give the allegations and write them in a complaint. So the police at some point have received criminal complaints from a number of women in this case. There's obviously 20-plus civil lawsuits that have been filed here. But it's kind of something else to hear the woman say that directly. I think probably the most powerful point in the Deshaun Watson case against him was the day that Tony Busby and alleged victim got up on the podium and they put their names to this case. A really emotional day. That was a couple months back. We haven't had that many updates. This is really the second time that someone has gone kind of live in public, with their allegations. So it's one thing to read what's going on. It's another thing to hear it directly from the horse's mouth. So I don't know. I think there is, at least from my vantage point, I don't have any inside information. It seems that there is now a collective effort all of a sudden by the women on the other end of this to really apply the pressure. Since Deshaun Watson has now appeared at camp and the NFL has said we're not going to punish him, now, the other side's responding and say, you know what, we're going to go public and we're going to make this really messy so the NFL does.
Well, you know what, Dan? You always want justice to be served. So that's the first thing you say there. But if you just look at it from Deshaun Watson's standpoint, you're an NFL fan, you're a Texans fan, you just want to see him play quarterback, is there a best-case scenario for him? Like, is there any way that he can come to some sort of agreement with all of these plaintiffs and then somehow whatever the NFL is going to do, maybe give him a 6-8 week ban or something? Is that the best-case scenario for him? Because he hasn't made any indication that he wants to settle. I don't even know what that would look like for all of these different plaintiffs.
Yeah, I think just think about it practically. I mean, best case scenario gets no punishment, and I think you ask a lot of the experts. We all kind of expected some punishment to come down. I mean, I've always said it's going to happen before week 1 of the NFL season. I didn't think he'd let him practice, but I guess reasonable minds can differ on whether he can practice or not and be with the team through training camp. So best case scenario, the NFL just holds court and just doesn't do anything. They just wait it out. I just think that's atypical of what we've seen in these situations from the NFL. And, as I mentioned when I spoke to you guys last week, over across the pond in Major League Baseball, Trevor Bauer is shelved indefinitely with sexual assault allegations of his own. It would seem odd that Roger Goodell, with a star quarterback, a high-profile player, with 20 civil sexual assault allegations, could just let this fly and let him be out there. So, the more pressure that's applied from these women, these accusers, I think the NFL is going to have to act. But yeah, there's a scenario, definitely a world where he gets suspended for 6 to 8 games in terms of settlement. I mean, just think about it, right? These are 20 different women with all different types of economic sensibilities, up and down. Some may be well off financially, some might not be. Some might truly be in it for the money, and there's no clear in it for the money. That's why you have a civil case to get some money. Another one just might want a pint of blood, which we can talk about in the Evander Kane sense, but you have someone that doesn't want to settle a case when money is not an object. Maybe they just don't want to settle. So there's a world where this continues on and these fights, the fight goes on in court for a year. I mean, it's definitely possible.
We're talking with Dan Lust, sports attorney to the stars. You can follow him at Sports Law Lust. Dan, I'm going to move to the NHL and news out of San Jose and Sharks' Evander Kane. Now, a while ago, he had filed bankruptcy for like $25 million, but now it seems that being a piss poor parent and husband has let the cat out of the bag. But beyond a character test to whether he's a good person or a good father, let's go to as Maz said, the allegations about gambling on his own team. How serious is this where it's at right now, and what are the next steps that we're going to hear?
Well, when I saw the story, you can ask Tom, I immediately thought of you, Darren. I knew this would be something up your alley, truthfully.
Well, and to be honest, it hit home because, I've had the bankruptcy, I've had the not to this level, but sort of gone through gambling and stuff and been through divorce. And I'm grateful that my baby mama and the kids was a different, but it really hit me sort of personally that this is something that's out there. Now, in saying that, no matter what gambling it was never betting on the own team. And I think the whole point of the matter is this is a seriousness, because this is, I guess, the really illegal part. So, yeah, it did hit. It's one of these things that I wish that it sort of hit closer to home than I would have liked, but the transparency and the truth of it is that let's figure out what the truth is, because as Dennis said so poignantly, let the truth prevail. So, where are we at with this, and what's going to happen?
I'll give you it as tight as I can, and I'll open it up for questions. I mean, everyone knows the allegations at this point. It's not just betting on his own team; it's betting on his team to lose and profiting from the bet. So this is somewhere in terms of an allegation, right? Innocent until proven guilty in the court of law, and it should be in the court of public opinion. Sometimes we want to convict people before anything comes in. But, the Black Sox scandal back in 1919 was an allegation that someone threw the World Series and gained some money off it. Pete Rose, Darren, you mentioned sometimes the allegation people bet on their own team and to win money if their team wins, but that's not what we have here, right? Something a little bit closer to the Black Sox scandal. A scandal is a scandal, and we'll see what big allegation. And I think part of it, Darren, as much as we want to, as sports fans, stick to the sports side of it or stick to the gambling side of it, the NHL has got to look at everything. They got to look at why these allegations are coming out now. They have to look at the messy part of it, the family part of it, the divorce part of it, right? Because who's saying these comments? Someone obviously that has an axe to grind with Evander Kane. That's the messy side of it. But they need to dig into all of that and figure it out. From a hockey perspective, Darren, as you know, Evander Kane's filed for bankruptcy from a number of years of, we'll say, money mismanagement, however you want to call it. He's involved in 13 lawsuits, I believe. We've looked at the court docket. So he's got a long history, but here's the most important part. Early this year, he filed for bankruptcy in which he claimed that he lost $1.5 million in gambling debts. So it's not an allegation against Joe Schmo, who has no history of gambling. It's someone that's alleged to have lost $1.5 million in gambling. And then, I don't, just pointing out all the facts so people can draw their own conclusions. It's not as if the San Jose Sharks won the Stanley Cup, right? That's also has to be part of this, unfortunately. San Jose Sharks the last 2 years at least have been an under 500 team. You got to factor that part in. Obviously, Evander Kane's performance doesn't seem to raise any red flags, but if you're the NHL and you want to conduct an investigation, you got to look over at baseball and see what the MLB did for the Houston Astros. They looked at every game, they looked at every pitch, and I think that's what the NHL has to do to instill public confidence back in this. Short of Anna Kane, his wife, coming out and saying, "Hey, I made the whole thing up," the public's conscience is going to be a little shocked by this. And on a gambling level, probably similar to what we saw in the NBA with Tim Donaghy, right? The NBA ref that was accused of being, shifting games one way or another. That's the risk that you run here, and the NHL's got to deal with this swiftly and accordingly. And credit to them, they jumped on this over the weekend. They said we're launching a full investigation, but this is going to be a very hard thing to either prove or disprove. So the NHL's got to get on the horse real quick, hire some fancy schmancy lawyers, and put together a report to try to calm the noise here.
But is it fair for me to say, because of where gambling is, not only in Canada but in this country today, the legality of it, that these, no matter if it's hockey or whatever, these allegations, they got a fine-tooth comb as far, because this is deeper than maybe it would have been back in Pete Rose's day, where it was more through a bookie than it was done legally now. Like, there's so many more implications, isn't there?
It's so easy to put a bet in.
Well, that's what I mean. So they have to, as you're the lawyer, is that, I guess, fair as a layman to ask that? Is that a fair question that they're going to have to, they'd be doing it? They'd be smart of their part to do that.
Well, just think about it. I mean, they nailed Pete Rose years ago in Major League Baseball. They spoke to the bookies, right? It's a little black book. There was concrete evidence, but I mean, it's a different world now, right? Think about the amount of communication that you have where there's some type of receipt. It's not done in person anymore. You can text, you can email, you can send a message on Instagram, so Twitter. So there's going to be a lot more receipts, and just like, Darren, to your point, the way that you make a bet, and at least these allegations with these book, maybe they're offshore account, but there's usually some type of receipt as to whether or not you made a bet, either on a legal site or an illegal site. Either way, it's not just like you go to your bookie 50 years ago, you hand them a wad of cash and you go away. So even in that, untechnological era with Pete Rose, they nailed him. And here, I mean, they're going to interview everyone. They're going to look through his computer. They're going to look through his forensics. You might even have a Tom Brady situation, right? Like when they want to look at the guy's cell phone, and back in the day, right, Tom Brady destroyed the cell phone,
right,
at least as was reported. But the NHL's got a lot of power here. They have I think the evidence for the NHL to suspend Evander Kane is something called substantial evidence. It's a little bit higher than credible evidence over in the NFL. So it's a high burden, but I just have a hard time seeing the guy take the ice. I think the season starts in about 8 weeks. I have a hard time on the ice with this still hanging over his head. So we'll see. I mean, I hope they can solve this quick, but this is not something that's going to be solved overnight, at least in my opinion.
Our buddy Dan Lust joins us. You could follow him on Twitter at SportsLawLust. Sports attorney to the stars, of course. Let's go to one of your favorite subjects. It's the Cleveland Guardians. Mac wanted to call them the Cleveland Steamers, but they went with the Cleveland Guardians instead. And the roller derby girls are not backing down, Danny.
Why are you calling them the roller derby girls? It's a men's team.
I'm sorry. The roller derby men. My bad.
So I'll mess with you for a second, right? Let's say they went with the Cleveland Steamers, right? They'd probably place a call to good old Stanley Steamer, right? Just make sure it's okay. That's
exactly.
Right? If they wanted to use the Cleveland Spiders, was their name back in the day, they'd probably call up the Cleveland Spiders, whoever has clevelandspiders.com. Now, fast forward, we take you to the Cleveland Guardians. That's the name they picked for whatever reason. Now, we know because we have quotes. They put a call into Marvel, and they said, hey, is it okay? You guys have Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the deal, right? And I guess they got the clearance there. The XFL, if anyone's a fan of the XFL, there's a team, the Guardians. They called up the XFL. You sure it's okay to use the name Guardians? Sure. We know this because they put it out there. It was in quotes that they cleared those two entities. Now, conspicuously absent from any of those quotes, from any of that media, is that they picked up the phone and they called Cleveland Guardians the roller derby team, right? The entity that owns ClevelandGuardians.com, at Cleveland Guardians on Instagram, Facebook.com/Cleveland Guardians. The most obvious one with the exact same name should be the one featured up front in all of your quotes. That's who you had to deal with. All we know right now, again, fun exercise. Go to www.clevelandguardians.com. Who owns it? Not the baseball team. Am I right? I mean,
right.
Let's go to DetroitTigers.com. Go to Tigers.com. It goes to the team. Do that with every Major League Baseball team. It should work. Now, the other fun one, Tom, this is my favorite, right? Yankees.com is going to go to the Yankees website. .com is going to go to the Red Sox website.
Right.
Guardians.com is available for sale for the highest bidder. I'm not sure who cleared the name change on July 23rd. All I can tell you is that there was a lot left to be desired. And now the newest update is that the Cleveland Guardians roller derby team is filing a trademark to fight with the baseball team. And the way the trademark law works, it's the first one to use it, not the one that has the most pockets. So the Guardians roller derby team has been using this since 2011, setting up for an epic battle, and maybe one where the Cleveland baseball team doesn't lose.
Dan, we all hate Ohio, so we hope it just blows up in their face. I think that a little bit of a conspiracy theory, or maybe it was planned. Maybe they went out there and said, look, we know there's going to be a lot of pushback, whatever we do. So we float out the Guardians, but we have this in our back pocket. In a couple of weeks, we come out, and everybody's like, man, total thumbs down on this. Let's go out there. We can throw this ruse out there. We can say, it was a copyright thing. We'll have to go back. Now we'll be the Spiders. So they put it out there as a tester for real with this in their back pocket so they could go out there and reverse it and go somewhere else. Or it was like the old Coke and New Coke where they knew that they were never going to do this, and they just did it so they could sell some Guardian merchandise right off the top, and then they would go back and be the baseball team for a year. I'm putting my money on that one.
Yeah, that sounds like the brain power that would also not pay a roller derby team before they announced the change. Same type of idea here, so can't put it past them. But I'm just pointing out, like, there is a world where they could buy their way out of this, and people are telling me, like, hey, they're just going to buy their way out of it. I'm like, okay, sure. Why haven't they done it already? Why has it been 10 days since they announced the change? And you still go to clevelandguardians.com and it's not going to the baseball team. So, I don't know, Major League Baseball and the Cleveland baseball team, I'm sure they have some really fancy schmancy lawyers with some Ivy League degrees, I'm sure of it, right? Maybe check Google next time. Maybe. I mean, just a wild thought, right?
Hey, Dan, thanks for coming on with us. What do you got going the rest of the day? I know you're a busy man.
Ooh, we got a bunch, but I guess I should plug my website, conductdetrimental.com. All the stories we just addressed, we have them all up there. We're lawyers, we like to have some fun, and we're happy to dig into this Cleveland Guardians story and make fun of your neighbors in the division.
Hey, man, we'll look forward to keep reading you on Twitter, man. You're a riot. Appreciate it, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
All right, Dan Lust, our good attorney friend, attorney to the stars, we call him, at Sports Law Lust. You believe that? You believe that, Denny? You think they just lay it out with Guardians and spiders in the back pocket? I love spiders.
I think the business people, I know they put a lot of Twitter polls and other things out there. They did their market research. They do their market analysis. And look, Dan, how many times did he mention fancy, schmancy lawyers? I mean, you could take 3 or 4 of us and sit around for 5 minutes, and we would have said, okay, what are going to be the issues? First one's going to be trademark.
Yeah.
So, they didn't just let the most obvious thing go by them. They had to be thinking about something like this. Let's see out here, and let's really test it out. When it hits the fan, are people really going to like this? Are they really going to get the pushback? You know that everybody initially is going to say they hate it. That's just the way things work this way. But it gives them an out, and maybe they went about it that way. Or they said, how could we make the most money off of rebranding ourselves? And they could wait a year and call themselves a baseball team. Or they could say, hey, let's throw a bunch of different stuff out there. Let's sell it while we can, and we'll just keep playing around with everybody until we actually find something.
Who knows? It's a name.
So if you want to be like Stanley Cup champion Darren McCarty, go to coastportland.com and get your Coast products today.